Hey everybody, on this episode of AFTERBUZZ TV Spotlight On, we're getting up close and personal with actor Phillip Keane. Let's do it.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, welcome to AFTERBUZZ TV Spotlight On. This is the show where we get up close and personal with the people in front of and behind the camera that bring you all the great entertainment you watch on your TVs or maybe on your mobile streaming devices, wherever you get a chance to watch those. I'm your host, Frank Moran. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie. Now, my guest today got his start as a flight attendant, taking people to exotic destinations. But now he's an actor on TNT's Major Crimes, where he takes criminals to jail. The winter season is just getting ready to debut on TNT, February 22nd. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Phillip Keane.
Hey, Frank. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, my gosh. Pleasure's all mine. I just want to start off because I've always been fascinated with PanAm. Mm-hmm. So, and I know you worked there. You've a huge collection.
That's true. I worked there for the last 4 years. The company was in business, and I've collected about close to 4,000 pieces now in my personal collection. I think I'm one of the top 5 collectors in the U.S.
That is amazing. So, I mean, I know you grew up here in Los Angeles.
In L.A., spent a couple of years in Central America, then came back to L.A., then moved to Florida, and then to London, then to Amsterdam, then back to London, back to Florida, and then back to L.A.
Man, so a world traveler even before you had a chance to work for PanAm.
The last 4 destinations were because of PanAm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, did that just traveling around as a youth kind of give you that itch that you wanted to do a career that allowed you to go and travel still?
Yeah, I think so. I got bit by the travel bug really early on. So this reminds me of a bumblebee.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that really inspired me to bite the bullet and to work for PanAm and to travel all over the world. And I really loved it. I did it for 4 years, and I hadn't gone to college at that point. So at that time, that was my college education.
Wow. Now, is that something that it was kind of fostered by your parents, that they wanted to kind of be like a person of the world to kind of go?
Not at all. My parents weren't really advocates of higher education. They just never had the opportunity to go themselves. So it was something that I started to pursue later on in life. I went to college in my 30s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, so that was what made you decide, like, all right, I want to do this career as a flight attendant first before I go off and do any higher education?
Well, I had grown up in the restaurant business, so I knew the service industry pretty well. So there was a skill set that I had already, and I loved to travel, so the two fit really well together. And I spoke Spanish, which was a requirement at the time, and it just fit really well. So I got the job, and I would probably still have been doing it today had the company not gone bankrupt.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's, I have a few friends that used to work for Delta. One currently works for Delta, just started a year ago, and was telling me about just the audition and the training process that you have to go through to get it. Very rigorous.
Yeah, for us, one in every, I think, 1,000 or 2,000 people were hired. So the odds of getting the job were pretty slim. So I was really lucky to get it.
Now, I guess I'm trying to think back then when PanAm was still in existence. I mean, there's certainly a lot more carriers then, but was it competition even more extreme now, or was it back then competition was more extreme for those positions?
I would think that the competition was more extreme back then because the industry has changed so much nowadays. I mean, you fly, you know what it's like anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like getting on a bus.
Yeah.
And I started to see that transition later on in my years of flying, and it wasn't the glamorous experience that a lot of people think it was.
No, well, yeah, it is not anymore today. I mean, especially for somebody that rides coach a lot of times. So
it's really not very comfortable back there. But we used to still serve champagne and caviar in first class, lobster thermidor, mock turtle soup. And I know you mentioned that you're a food traveler.
Yes.
And so I was exposed to a lot of different foods because of the airline. Really good curries out of London, clotted cream, just really, really good stuff to eat.
That's amazing. Now, before that, you mentioned that you spent some time in Central America. Mm-hmm. Was that was that a career? Was that a school? Was that just family? What brought you there?
It was family, and I don't know if your parents ever argued, or mom would take off maybe and go visit her mother. Uh-huh. Well, that happened to a lot of my family. So my mother decided to go visit her sister, who lived in Central America. So I stayed with my aunt for a couple of years as a result.
Now, did you know Spanish going in there?
I didn't. I think I was 3.5 or 4 when I moved to Nicaragua.
Okay.
And then I came back to the States a year later, and I couldn't speak English.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
That is interesting. So what is it like learning English? I mean, I guess
again,
the first time.
Sort of, yeah. Well, I couldn't communicate with my mother in the beginning. So it took a good 4 or 5 months probably to be able to talk to her again.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be challenging.
Yeah, so a lot of the Spanish stayed with me And then when I was 12, I went back to Central America, but this time to Costa Rica and picked it up again.
That's, I mean, I feel like, as they always say, like children are such a sponge for multiple languages.
Definitely. I think I would encourage any parent that has kids to teach them a language as early as possible. I have 2 goddaughters who speak Mandarin, Spanish, and English, and a little bit of, is it Scottish? Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So back, of course, in high school, when you have to take a language, do you stick with Spanish or do you go with French?
They didn't offer French or German because the budgets had been cut already, so the only thing we had was Spanish, so I did take it. I did pretty well.
Well, as already coming in, yes.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, what is the Spanish language you speak
It's
of? I
so
guess I'll
easy,
try.
yeah.
Churros, chocolate. Yeah. So when you you do the restaurant business for a while as a server here in the LA area, where as you're traveling around
the
all
Inland
over.
Empire and Los Angeles. I started working full time when I was 12. Got a work permit from school and started bussing tables and stocking the bar, cleaning tables, taking in the deliveries from all the purveyors that we had, whether it be meat or vegetables and things like that, doing all the prep work.
Now, is that somebody because you were also interested in food, or you just wanted a job at that point?
I just needed a job at that point. I was helping out the family. So.
Did that grow your appreciation for food? I mean, certainly, the travel bug kind of gave you that. But
exactly. No, it was basically a steak and seafood restaurant, so there wasn't a great deal of variety and not exactly the highest end of service. But I learned to appreciate the value of hard work. Yeah.
Now, when it comes time to decide that you want to pursue a career as a flight attendant, back at that time, was PanAm, was that the top dog in terms of?
It still was. The reputation was still that it was the top dog in the business. Yeah. When people thought of status and glamour, they thought of PanAm. Still then.
So for you, were you already a fan of PanAm before applying, or
I was, because I'm a huge history buff, and I fell in love with the company and its founder. And his idea was to shrink the world in a way, to bring people together. And so by taking flights out of the U.S. to the other parts of the world, he's exporting U.S. culture, and then in turn, by taking all these people from other countries to the U.S., bringing culture from other countries into the United States as well.
And so for you, how long is the training process?
It was 6 weeks, and we called it Barbie Doll Boot Camp because a lot of the training was geared toward stewardesses, is what they were called way back when. So we were taught such helpful things as to how to bend over to pick things up, not to bend at the waist, but to bend at the knee. If we smoked, we were taught how to smoke. What kind of conversations to have, what topics of conversation were okay to begin with, some things not to talk about. We were trained in anti-terrorism techniques and what the different groups were, what their motives were. So it's a little bit different than it is today.
So calling it Barbie Boot Camp, so it was more, even at that time, still having male flight attendants, was that more of a abnormality than?
There weren't that many guys in the class, but there was a reverse discrimination lawsuit, I think started in 1969, and it was ended in 1972, called Diaz versus PanAm, because at that point they'd stopped hiring men, and a lot of the guys wanted the job because it was full of single ladies. So a lot of the guys thought, well, this will be perfect for me. But anyway, he won, and he was able to get a job. But primarily the job was mostly women for the most part. So a lot of the training was geared toward that. As far as grooming and appearance, you could be pulled out of training for any infraction, whether you didn't wear your scarf right or you didn't have your pocket square in the right way. If your nails weren't clean, you'd be yanked out of training and given demerits.
Wow, so you're basically on the clock, so to speak, from moment one getting into training.
Oh yeah, anytime that you are, whether you're your own clothes or in uniform, you're representing the company.
Wow, so even like after class and you're just out socializing, you got to be
watching us.
Really?
Yes.
Could you tell that they were watching? Like, all right, they're here. We were
a little paranoid. I think we felt that our rooms were being bugged and there were cameras everywhere. I know, but we really tried to play the straight and narrow.
So is it right after the end of that 6 weeks? Do they tell you yes or no, or is there still a bit of a evaluating time where they make their decisions?
I had one friend in the training program. She lost 6 roommates during the 6 weeks. So she'd come back from a training class and her roommate would be gone. There'd be no evidence that she'd ever been there. Her bed was made up, all her clothes were gone, and she was just gone. 6 times this happened to her. So she got to feeling a little paranoid at the end.
Understandably so.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess does that feeling? I imagine that feeling of paranoia can't make that training process any easier for you.
No. And I hadn't been to school in 12 or 13 years when I started flying. I mean, probably 4 years before I started flying. So I really studied my rear end off to try and get good marks in the class.
It's a friend of mine is just going back to college right now, kind of similar to yourself, where you're kind of going back a little later in life, and he was saying, boy, it feels like now I know how to sort of game the system. Or I just know it's like hard work pays off.
It's really hard work, and I was that student in class that's always raising his hand. What's that word you used, or what did you just say? Because I was there on my own dime. You know, my parents weren't paying for it. I wanted to be there. There were things that I wanted to get out of it that no one else was pushing me to do it.
So when you do tell your parents that this is something, a career that I want to pursue right now, and knowing that they were kind of leaning towards higher education, was there some resistance at first?
No, not at all. They really weren't that involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course, once you get there and they go, oh, we can get
free flights.
Yes,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Hey,
yeah, they took advantage of it. I took them to London a couple of times, and they got to fly in first class, so that was a real treat for them.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Is that like one of the jobs there? As soon as people find out that you have it, like old friends start coming out of the woodwork, like,
friends you didn't
hey.
even know you had. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, can I get a buddy pass? Can I get a free ticket? So.
Phillip,
yeah,
buddy!
It's so good to see you.
It's been so long.
Yeah.
You know, we were like this back in the day. Like,
yeah, maybe not.
Because I know a friend of mine that's working currently for Delta, he was saying that after the training program, you get assigned a city, and you really don't have any say over. You can put some choices, but you don't really have a final say.
Yeah, my first bid was for London, and then New York, and then L.A., San Francisco, and then Miami. I got my first choice. I was really, really lucky.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to go to London 3 times and love that city and that country. What is it like to actually get the chance to live there for an extended time?
It's pretty great. I mean, I moved there in 1988 when the exchange rate was almost $2 to the pound, and we were getting paid in dollars at the time. And just to give you an idea of how much money the flight attendants make, my first year I grossed $14,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So there were times when if I had a week off, I would just fly the system. So I'd get on the plane and just fly the longest flight I could get on and fly back home and fly back and fly back and fly back for about a week. I had a warm place to sleep and I had food.
Oh, man, that's... So I know like the theater in London, amazing.
Yes.
So did you, when you could scrape together the money, were you going to theater?
I was going to the Fringe Theater because it was much cheaper and standing room only, those kind of seats. So I got a little taste of that, but I was 21 when I got hired. So my tastes were more toward nightclubs and going out. So I got to see the nightlife in London pretty well. Yeah,
I bet that's very nice. I mean, and I guess flight attendant, that opportunity to be able to be based in London, which is so close to so many other European cities.
Yeah.
That when you do have that free time to hop a flight to somewhere else, it's got to be very tempting.
I would open up our schedule and I would just point to a place, and because at that time we could literally write our own tickets. We had blank ticket stock. I'd write my name in it and the destination. If there was a seat available, I got on.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so just in terms of prestige, you're a PanAm flight attendant walking around, and there you have somebody from Delta or United or American. Just as you're walking through the airport, what is the difference? Are you just like you're just a little bit cooler than everybody else?
We thought we were. Yeah. I'm sure that some of the other carriers would argue that they were, but we had a reputation in London amongst ourselves, amongst the PanAm crowd, of being overdressed and self-impressed, and we probably were. We were a little snooty, I think.
But I feel like there's something, and I don't know if you think it's just because of nostalgia, but there's just something about, you see the PanAm logo, you see the travel posters, you things like that, it just romanticizes the experience of travel so much that I just am such a fan of that, opposed to like Delta or American or United. They just don't have that, at least their materials don't give me that sense of kind of history.
Exactly. Well, PanAm started in 1927. I think Delta was right behind us or right around the same time, but Delta started off as a domestic carrier, where PanAm started off internationally. Flying from Florida to Cuba, and then all of Central and South America, and then conquering the Pacific, and then conquering the Atlantic. So we had a lot of firsts,
Yeah, it's because there are a couple places in New York that do like the old school travel posters and stuff.
Oh yeah, I collect a lot. I have about 60 in my collection.
That I've had a chance to pick up a couple from like at least destinations that I've been to, like for Rome or Japan, where it's like yes, I at least want to get a poster that, and like the PanAm ones are just. Yeah, they're just so cool.
We hired a really good group of graphic artists. And is there a particular era that you like to collect?
I have to admit, like either anywhere from like the 30s to the 50s.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just there's just something just very romanticized and just very cool. Just the illustration.
Sure. Yeah, because it was all about the destination and about getting there.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. So as they start winding down, was there a sense of like the writings on the wall that this is starting to wind down?
Probably for people who'd been in the industry a long time, I think they could see what was happening. I, of course, had faith that the company would exist no matter what, because it had been going for such a long time at that point. And it had become more of a family to me and a lifestyle than a job. I could go anywhere in the world with PanAm, and there was always someone there for me. Here, you need to go shopping here, you need to eat at this place, you can stay with me here. So no matter where it was in the world we went, we always had family.
Oh, so when the time comes and the Pan Am does shut down, was there any thought to you of like, well, I'll just switch over and work for a different carrier?
No, it was like being ripped out of your home in a sense. I mean, I was so close to so many of these people. My first year flying, there was a huge disaster over Lockerbie, Scotland, and those were all friends of mine. So, and I'd seen most of them the day before. Oof. So I think that just created an even stronger bond for me rather than taking me away from the company.
So certainly your idea to kind of collect it, that you weren't certainly done with PanAm even after the company had closed down.
No, I'd started collecting about a year after the company went out of business, and just with matchbooks and little advertisements that I could find, because that's what I could afford. And now I actually have pieces of the interior of the aircraft, pieces going back to the 1930s up until the day we closed business in 1991.
Get out of
yeah.
Where do you go to look for pieces of an interior of an airplane? Where do you look?
I find a lot of stuff on eBay and secondhand stores. I sort of have a bat honing instinct, so I go in this place and they send off little signals of this is the Pan Am Blue or this is a napkin from that era, and I'm able to find it in piles of junk everywhere.
Now, do you have any people kind of out there knowing that you are a fan of this, that if they come across it, they're immediately on the phone with you? Phillip, I'm over here.
Oh, yeah, definitely. One of my buddies from the show, Raymond Cruz, who plays Detective Sanchez, more famously maybe playing Tuco on Breaking Bad. He's just a real badass. He was so excited he found a headset that was still in the original package. And he's like, look, man, I found this for you. So he's on the lookout for stuff for me, too.
I have to admit, that for me, that to know that you have a passion for that makes it easier for all your friends to know what to get you for special events, right?
Yeah, that's
all
true.
Right, found that. Perfect. This
cool.
is I got Phillip knocked off there.
Yeah.
So how much would you, just kind of guesstimate, 4,000 pieces, not all in your own home currently?
No, I have 2 storage areas that a lot of it's in, and then some of it's hanging on the walls, like posters and advertisements and things like that. And a couple of shelves in my office with smaller pieces like wings and silver-plated cups and silverware, things like that.
Is your appreciation so much for that is because the company ended before you were ready to say goodbye? Or is it just that you just love the company so much that regardless, you would still have been doing this?
I think regardless, I would still be doing this. It was just a lot of fun to trace the history of the company and to see how it would grow when he was faced with these obstacles and people said, no, there's no way you can cross the Atlantic in an airplane. There's no way you can do this. He found a way to do it. There's no way you're going to get across the Atlantic. He found a way to do it. This aircraft isn't big enough. He partnered with Boeing and with Sikorsky and with Northrop Grumman and helped create and design new airplanes.
And so in 2013, you were doing you had an exhibit in Palm Springs for this.
For Modernism Week, which is going on right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my exhibit's not on, but 2013 I had it there.
So what's it like to actually put together your own exhibit and kind of curate it and set it all up?
It was exhausting. It took about 3 days to set it up, and I had some friends come in from New York to help me and helped host the whole thing as well, former flight attendants. My friend Sheila, who actually was on the press charter with Kennedy during the time he was assassinated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Yes.
That's
a lot of historical firsts with the company.
And as I was reading up about that, that you have some of the stewardesses uniforms that they'd wear.
Yeah, I've got stuff going back from the stewards from the 1930s and up until 1991 when we stopped flying. I have all of my uniforms and a lot of the ladies' uniforms of different styles and different eras. So I'm trying to get a complete collection. There are 2 pieces that I'm still missing, but I'm hoping to find.
Oh, I did not realize that Edith Head designed some of the uniforms.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, from 1975 to 1980, she designed 2 sets of uniforms.
Oh, yeah. So
for the guys and for the women.
How hard is it how long have you been looking for these final 2 pieces?
I know where they are. It's just a matter of getting the funds together to get them. And finding someone who will let go of them.
I got to imagine that this for as much as you love them, there's got to be people all around the world that love it just as much as you that don't want to let go of these pieces.
I think so, but there's a lot of the women I used to fly with whose family don't really care about this kind of thing because it's so far removed from their experience that they don't really know what to do with it. So.
Oh, so you're just buying time.
I have a good home for it. If everybody's listening or
That's
watching,
right.
yeah.
Yes, reach out to Phillip. He'll take good care of it. Promise. So when in 1991, when Pan Am shuts down, where were you located?
Miami.
Okay.
December 3rd of 1991, I was in Caracas and came home late that evening back to Miami. The next day, my roommate called me from college and said, dude, you don't have a job anymore. That's how I found out.
What a great,
yeah.
Wow, what a way to break it to me. Thank you.
Exactly.
So for you, all of a sudden now realizing that something you loved, a job that you loved, and all these experiences that you had, all of a sudden it's taken away from you.
Yeah.
Were you kind of up in the air as deciding what the next step was going to be?
I was, but I knew I had to get a job right away. So I went out looking for work. And Miami's a very different place than any other place in the country. They don't really dress up. I was taught to wear a suit and tie for a job interview, and I did this for my first 2. And after I got the strangest looks I've ever seen, I just went in like a t-shirt and jeans, and then I got hired.
No, I do remember going to one of my first jobs at a drugstore, and went in with a shirt and tie on, and felt very overdressed, and felt very uncomfortable.
Okay.
But at least the manager was like, no, that's cool, I respect that. So at least he did give me the job,
I mean,
but I still
effort,
felt weird. I'm like, what am I doing?
That's kind of funny.
So then how long was it before you decided I'm going to return back to Los Angeles?
My mother, I went back to stay with my family. My mom had some health issues, so I eventually made my way back to be closer to her, and that kind of played itself out. So
now, when and where does the acting bug kind of strike you? Had you something you'd always been interested in, never really considered as a career?
It was something I'd always been interested in ever since I was a little kid. I loved old movies just ever since I was little, and I always thought that's something that I would like to do, whether it be television or in film. But no one really ever encouraged me to pursue these kinds of things. And since I'd started working when I was 12, I didn't really find any space to start pursuing that. I did theater in high school, which I loved. I loved being with that group of people there, being creative. And right before I was about ready to graduate from college from UCLA, a buddy of mine who's a talent manager said, I'll represent you if you take some commercial acting classes and, do some scene studies. So I did that, booked a couple of commercials, did some student films, and then this job came up on The Closer about 13 and a half years ago.
And as I was reading there, it's like as long as you continue to grow, the character can grow with you.
Absolutely.
Do you find that was that intimidating to you, or did you I appreciate the challenge and I accept it?
I was terrified, to be honest with you. Working with people like J.K. Simmons and G.W. Bailey, Kira Sedgwick, I was so terrified of making mistakes. I made tons of them in the beginning, but everybody was very supportive and very helpful. So
what is a common mistake that somebody kind of new and kind of nervous on a set would make?
Not knowing where your lighting is, being bogged down by the camera in its position, moving far too much, those little things like that. Not knowing how to read a call sheet. Those are things they don't teach you in a class.
Oh, that's true. I would not have any idea how to read a call sheet. Yeah, I would have no idea.
Yeah.
I was like, my name? Okay.
That's good. Now where do I go? What do I do? Yeah.
So in that sort of environment, it's kind of like the new kid, so to speak, the new kid in school.
Sure.
What is it like? These offset discussions, like with Kira Sedgwick, J.K. Simmons, G.W. Bailey. All these folks, are you kind of just picking their brain, or are they just like, hey, let's just chat and hang out?
Just chit chat and joking around and seeing how people behave on the set. So there's always good lessons to learn, whether it's from good behavior or bad behavior. But they were always very, very helpful, and really just sitting down and watching them and watching how things were done, the choices that they would make during a scene or during rehearsal process, how things would change and evolve. Yeah.
So for you, as somebody that wanted to dive in and experience this, was it everything that you thought it was going to be, or were you like, whoa, this is a little bit more than I was expecting?
You know what? I don't really know what I was expecting. So I was open to anything and everything, and I just really sat and watched everybody, trying to drink it all in and feeling really behind the curve because I started so late.
But I feel like, those are the kind of stories that kind of help reassure, I think, anybody that has kind of not started pursuing something in the entertainment business or any career.
Okay, sure.
Early, like in their 20s, when they kind of I know exactly this is what I want to do with my life, and I'm in.
Yeah.
And some people come to it later in life and figure, this is what I really want to do, but am I too late? Am I too late to get doing this?
Sure, you got to give it a chance. If it's something that you really believe in and you really feel strongly about, you have to pursue it, I think, because you're never going to know.
No, and you don't want that eating away at you.
Exactly.
Yeah, as you're sitting there in some job that you really don't enjoy, you're like, oh, I should have done this. Why didn't I?
Yeah. I've had a lot of jobs,
yes.
A lot of different places I've worked. I worked as a makeup artist for a while. I worked for Calvin Klein for a while. I was an electrician's apprentice. I worked in retail. I bagged groceries. I was a busboy. I was a cook. I mean, you name it, I think I've done it.
Yeah, some people say, and I would agree with this, having those other life experiences, having those other jobs, doing those other things that you just have to do to get by, give you a better appreciation for when you do turn successful.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, we have a lot of downtime, as you probably know, waiting and waiting and waiting. And there are moments when we get maybe a little finicky and think, gosh, why is this taking so darn long? Don't you know that you're wasting my time? I'm sitting here. But then I think back, no, I could be standing on my feet all day bagging groceries. There are worse jobs to have.
No, very true.
Someone you get to work in the morning. Someone does your makeup. Someone fixes your hair. Someone lays out your clothes. You get to go in. They feed you. And it's a good day.
And they feed you well.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the one thing I always like. That is, as a foodie, somebody likes food that you just by the look of it, you all made you think like the food that's brought to a set is like, oh, okay, they're just rolling in this truck and they're cooking. But man, some of the food they use
some of it's really good. And by
amazing.
season 5 of The Closer, craft services and I had to break up because I'd gained about 40 pounds. So we had an affair for a couple of years, and then I just said, you know what, I love you, but we can't be together anymore.
Really?
So I just stayed away from the food, and because every time you'd walk from your trailer to set, there's like a bag of M&Ms, or there's cookies, or there's cake, or there's fruit, or there's always something. And because you've got so much downtime, you're bored. You're not really hungry. You just grab something to eat and you stick it in your mouth.
I'm just here. Why not?
Yeah, why not? It's only one more bag of chips.
That's right. What's that going to do?
Yeah,
Cut to like,
it'll be
oh
fine.
no, my pants aren't buckling. What's happening?
Like I said, the camera adds 10 pounds, and we've got 3 of them looking at us. So do the math.
So just to sidetrack for 1 second, when you went back to UCLA, or went to UCLA and decided to kind of pursue a higher education, you decided to do history.
History and art history.
Yes. So what was the decision that I want to do that?
I'd always loved history, and every time I pick up a book, it's either a biography or a history of the world in some sense. I have a very strange library. People make fun of me. I have the history of salt, history of coal, cod, the color red, potato. The world history through the eyes of the potato, I think, is very interesting. Mark Kurlansky wrote a bunch of books with a single subject and looking at the world through that lens.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, or biographies on Dietrich or Olivier or Julia Child, Amelia Earhart. So it's just putting people in context and seeing how everything is connected.
That's there's even those like little short bits where you'll see through your Facebook if you're scrolling through there or anything like that, where they'll just they'll focus on a singular subject like that and look at it through context of history.
Exactly.
That's just a nice little dabble for something if you want to really dive in deep.
True.
To a subject and learn about all its connections with it throughout history.
Because I'd only thought of salt as a seasoning, but it's a rock.
Yeah.
And it's the only rock that we eat.
And it was actually a currency. Correct?
Yes, it was. Yeah, that's where we get the word salary from.
Really?
Because the Roman soldiers, part of their pay was paid in salt, and I think the Latin word for salt is sal.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, look at that.
So, it all comes full circle.
Which I guess makes sense. You have to go back to the salt mines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Look at that. It's all coming together here. So now with that degree, how much do you kind of having that education now? Do you ever think about, you know what? Is there a career in here, like as being a historian or an art historian? That's something that I'd like to pursue as a career rather than acting.
Actually, no, and I know a lot of people ask me that, but I wanted to go to college and study something that I was interested in, not so much to get the degree so I could get a job, but just so that I could learn to think. And I don't know that education today is really focusing on those kinds of things. I think people are taught to take a test and to get the answers right, because I guess they're still trying to push kids through and get them graduated, but I don't know that that they're learning a great deal of critical thinking anymore.
So what's it like going to UCLA in your 30s, deciding, all right, I'm going to do this, as opposed to surrounding generally, by the most part, I think people in their
teens and early 20s, yeah. It was a little intimidating, to say the least. Some of my professors were younger than I was, so I thought that was kind of strange. But I really liked it. Like I said, I was there. I knew why I was there and what I wanted to do, and I was that student that raised his hand and asked every question that could ever be asked.
Because I think part of the college experience is the social component as well. But it was somebody that has their own life. They're not living on campus.
No, I wasn't living on campus, and I really didn't have anything in common with the 19 or 20-year-olds that were there. Yeah. I'd already gone way beyond what their life experience was. So I was coming at it with a completely different perspective. So
for that, is it I'm just there taking my classes, then I'm going home?
Yeah, there were a few people I met who were either close to my age or much, much older, just going in. They were auditing classes or taking them as a secondary education kind of thing. And those people I would sit down with, we'd have lunch, or we'd have dinners and talk about the class. Yeah.
Now, as an art historian, what is your kind of favorite style of art for you?
I fell in love with 17th century Dutch painting.
Really?
Yes, because it was at the height of the Netherlands' power, and they controlled the seas at the time and the trade, and so all the artwork reflects that part of it. And because the everyday man could have a piece of artwork in their home, because it'd become relatively inexpensive to do these woodcuts and these etchings, and then people could have them in their homes and admire them.
Because for me, it was I studied art in school, but went like more Art Nouveau. And maybe that's because I was always interested in illustration, comics, like Alphonse Mucha, just really enjoying all that stuff. And maybe that just led to my fascination with posters, things like that, and design throughout the years.
Yeah. It's a great period too. It's very short-lived, but there's a great exhibit of Art Nouveau furniture in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, where there's an entire room where the paneling has come out and the beds and everything looks organic, like it's growing up out of the floor. It's pretty amazing.
So during your travels, I'm sure you go to Paris, you go to the Louvre.
Yes.
Did you feel, and I just asking, like when you go see, I have built up in my head.
You can talk about the Mona Lisa?
Yes.
And it's this big?
Yes,
exactly.
And you turn the corner, you walk in, and you're like,
and it's at the end of the hallway. That's it? Really?
That's it?
Yeah. Felt the same way. And as awful as this sounds, I kind of felt the same way when I went to the Anne Frank house.
Really?
Yeah, because I got in there expecting it to be, like this big with 9 people living in it. And, I had friends who lived in New York that, there were 3 people living in a room this size. And granted, the circumstances were horrible that they had to live in. But I'm looking at this place thinking, it's a pretty big apartment,
Was it that, man?
No, of course it was awful.
Yes.
But, I mean, size-wise, it was a pretty big place.
No, it's true when you think about just what you've read or heard about in history. It fills your head with an idea of what you to expect when you go in.
Yeah.
And then when you actually see the real thing, it's like, oh, this is not exactly what I was expecting.
But I'm one person in the room thinking, oh, well, this is okay. Yeah.
Let's get 9 other people in, or 8 other people with me,
Yeah, no.
and see what it's like.
Exactly.
So
we're going to get some bad comments from that, I'll bet you.
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. Okay. So now, so you're on the closer, and you're as the seasons go on, you're getting more. When did you feel like? What season did you feel like? I think I'm starting to get the hang of this. I feel pretty comfortable now being on set and doing everything.
Probably not until about season 4 or 5, actually. There was a big learning curve for me, learning to be still and not trying to make a meal out of the scene when it only had a couple of lines, or just learn to serve the material and not to show that you can act. Because I think that's a big problem.
Is somebody giving? Is a director or somebody else on set kind of giving you that feedback, or is it from you just kind of watching some of your scenes?
Watching what it is that they use and what they don't use, what ends up in the cut, and reactions from my fellow castmates. And I would ask them for help. I'd say, how was that? How did I do? And they'd be very candid with me.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So.
But which is nice. I mean, especially I feel like there's no time to waste on a set like that.
None at all. Especially with the veterans that I've been working with, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. Not that they're all old or geriatric, but they've been in the business for a very long time, from different mediums. J.K. Simmons started off as a song and dance man on the stage, and one of the best actors I think I've ever worked with. Really, really fantastic man.
And to see what I've always, it was so weird to think of him, because I think of Oz.
Yes, of course.
Like many people think of Oz,
Yeah.
and then to see what else he does, you're like, oh wow, all right, this man is definitely a width and breadth of what he can do.
Very much so. Yeah.
So what I do like about that, what you're saying is that these more experienced actors will give you that feedback, but not in a way that's condescending or trying to be hurtful, but just trying to be directly honest with you.
Exactly. If you ask the question, you'll get the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And ask for help if you want it.
So for you, do you like watching yourself on camera, or do you kind of get a little like?
In the beginning, I would watch like this, kind of, and think, oh, why did you do that, or what happened there, and now I can watch it and then go back and critique it myself. So yeah.
So to see how Buzz has kind of grown, as they kind of laid out to you right at the beginning, like as long as you grow, the character will continue to grow.
Absolutely.
Have you been happy the way the Buzz has been growing through both this and Major Crimes?
Yes, I have been. The writers, as I've gained more experience on the set, and I think I've become more professional, and they've had more confidence in me. So they've given me a broader storyline. They've given me loads and loads of dialogue, which I've been able to accomplish, and I'm really happy about that. So.
Now, is that something that they ever chat with you just off to the side, or is that not until you're finding the scripts out that you find
not
like,
until
oh,
I'm finding the scripts? It's a difficult situation in that I'm married to the creator of the show, so I try not to. I don't ever use that as a trump card at all. If anything, I think it hinders me sometimes.
Being like too overly like sensitive to it.
Exactly. We start to have conversations at home, and he'll ask, well, why didn't I know about such and such? And I'll say, because I can't tell you. I'm not a mole. I have to keep everything separate. So that makes it a little bit challenging.
I definitely would realize that because. Yeah, just that. Yeah, I have to imagine that it's just a struggle to have somebody that's that is created and is working on the show that you were working on as well. Just like, all right.
So, and I think in the beginning, rightly so, the cast probably wasn't sure about me in the beginning because I had really no credits and no experience, and I think that showed in the beginning. But they were also maybe not too sure about what was going to go home with me. What was going to be relayed to the other producers and whatnot. So.
Like, I have to imagine like that a cast has got to feel like they can trust everybody on
exactly.
there.
And, trust has to be earned. So.
So now, as it winds down, and they decide we're going to how as you're married to the creator of both Major Crimes and The Closer, did you have a little bit of a lead time knowing like, all right, The Closer's winding down, but Major Crimes is starting that?
Yes, a little bit. I knew that we had come to the end of our contracts, and the idea of a spin-off was in the works, and I, for one, was very happy about that because it meant maybe a little bit more screen time for me. And the focus of the show would change slightly because before it was a single point of view, which was fantastic through Keira Sedgwick and Brenda Lee Johnson. And now it's become much more of an ensemble show. So everybody gets a chance to have a solo, if you will.
So for that, is it almost like the inverse, where since you may have a little insider knowledge about what lays ahead that you can't really share with the cast yet, do you have to kind of also?
No, because I've become very good at when those conversations are being discussed, whether on the phone with a network or the studio, I leave the room. Because if I don't know, then I can honestly say I don't know what's going on. So I purposely do not listen to these things.
Oh, that's Which then where you not feel like you're being deceptive towards any side.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Oh man.
So again, it makes it complicated, So
I mean, and what is it that you have? Certainly, it's more of an ensemble show now, Major Crimes. But you're trading Keira Sedgwick all of a sudden for Mary McDonnell. I mean, it's just two great tastes, depending on what your flavor is. But two exceptional actresses.
True.
So, because if I think of her, you think Dances with Wolves, Battlestar
Academy Award
Galactica.
nomination. Yes, and we loved her in Battlestar. Yeah, amazing.
So, what is there a difference? I mean, I guess because as we're talking about, it's more of a singular focus for The Closer and for Major Crimes. But does the set still feel the same because you're working with the majority of the same people?
Oh, absolutely. We have most of our same crew from the very beginning, even from The Closer. I think we probably have about 80% holdover from the beginning. I think other people could go. Our crew members could go to other shows, maybe make a little more money on, say, a network show or something else. But the environment is so good on our set that people keep coming back. So I mean, other people will go from being an AD or a director, so they'll leave and work someplace else. But for the most part, everybody just kind of stays with us, and it's a real family atmosphere. In fact, I'm having dinner tonight with Kieran Giovanni, who plays Detective Amy Sykes on our show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we hang out together after the show, during work. Even though we've spent maybe 12 or 14 hours together on one day, all throughout the week, we still get together on the weekends and hang out, whether we're playing golf or going surfing or riding bikes, having dinner at one another's homes, or just going out, hanging out, have a drink.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Because you do have those long stretches between seasons too, so it's kind of nice to be able to still be able to touch base with the friendships that you make on the set.
Because they do become your family in a way. Because you're spending so much time together.
Well, and for you, 13 years with a lot of the same people there.
Yeah, and we've kind of grown up together. I mean, if you look at it from a school standpoint, we would have started in kindergarten. Now we're in our first year of college.
So what's interesting about Buzz, though, is that as you described, he is an officer of the police, but he's not a police officer.
Exactly. Yes. Now he is a reserve officer, so he is a police officer. But in the beginning, he was just a civilian techie.
Which I think is a really interesting kind of, and not a profession that a lot of people would think about.
No, exactly. But he brought a different skill set into this work group. He had studied film in school and wanted to be a filmmaker, but also wanted to be involved with the police department in some way because of the murder of his father and uncle when he was a boy. But his mother didn't want him to get involved in that, so he found a way in eventually. And after her fears were allayed, he started doing the training and became a reserve officer, so that he could eventually reopen the cold case of his father's murder.
Now, part of being an actor is the chance to kind of step into somebody else's life and play that profession or that life choice or whatever it is.
Yes.
So for you, did you do any kind of research into the civilians that work with the police force?
I do a lot of volunteer work with an organization called the Sunshine Kids, and we're heavily involved with the LAPD. And every year they come out with sirens and cars, and the police chief comes out and deputizes all the kids that come to visit. We bring them to the set. We take them to the beach. So I do a lot of work with the police in that regard. I've gone on a couple of ride-alongs in different parts of the city. So I tried to get as much firsthand experience as I could in the limited amount of time that I had to try and use that to feed the character. Yeah.
Because I feel like working with children or having children kind of makes you re-look at the way you may think of police. Because even me just driving around, if I see the police come by, I will immediately get nervous. Am I speeding? Am I doing?
Why is that? Even if you're not doing anything wrong, we just have this immediate reaction.
But for my daughter, I will just always try to encourage a positive association. Oh, it's cool. Look, there's a police officer wave or anything like that. So it's always interesting, which kind of helps me as well. So all right, let's not always look at them as just something that I'm going to get a ticket. Look what's happening.
I know. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like really in a daily life to put on that uniform and become a target just because you're wearing that. And people automatically make assumptions about you.
And not for the positive.
Most often, probably not. No. But as a kid, when you were growing up, did you want to be a fireman or a policeman or anything like that?
Everybody thinks that's cool. Yes.
Because you get to be, I don't know, like the Lone Ranger in a sense. You're carrying a gun, you're dispensing justice, you're doing the right thing. But sometimes, people who don't do the right thing get into these jobs.
No, they're very true. And sometimes also you get your first speeding ticket and you're mad, and then also you assume
stupid cop. I can't believe you did. Or these other people are speeding off. Why don't you get them?
Exactly. And then all of a sudden that's puts a negative connotation with them. You're like, all right, I'm always going to be kind of like about them, which is not the best thing to be doing.
No.
So I'm sure the kids gotta love being able to go to a set. Though.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun for them. I think. They don't, because oftentimes they're very young, so they're not watching our show, but the idea of coming onto a film set is a new experience for them. And the best thing for me with them is that they get a helicopter flyby over at Universal City, because that's where they stay. Each child is assigned an officer or a deputy. They get into a police car or a Hummer, and lights and sirens the whole way from Universal City to our studio. All the streets are blocked off. This only happens for presidents or heads of state.
Get out of town.
So it's great, It's a lot of fun.
I can imagine all the kids just faces up against the window, just taking it all in. Like, this is so cool.
And everybody's filming them and taking pictures. It's great. Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, bringing the kids into the studio, and they're getting really excited just being on a set. Yeah. For you, 13 years into the closer now, Major Crimes, do you still have that kind of feel of excitement when you come onto a set?
I love going to work. I always say I get to go to work today. I have to go, or I have to get up at 3:30 in the morning or 4 o'clock. I don't mind. I love it. It's still new for me. It's only 13 years and it's still new for me.
So now during these times, though, these slower when you're not shooting, the show's on hiatus. What do you do to kind of fill the time?
Oftentimes I'll take a class. Maybe not necessarily something that I would want to do. I took an improv class at the Groundlings with a friend of mine. And it's not because I wanted to do comedy, but it was just something that I wanted to see what it was like to do, to stretch a little bit.
Nice. Did you do 5 through the door?
Did I do what?
Did you 5 through the door over the Groundlings?
What do you mean?
Or did you do like the intro to basic? Or?
Yeah, the intro to basic is what I did, yeah.
I think for like the level 1 there, they make you do 5 through the door at the end of the class to see if you pass, where you have to come up with 5 characters and you keep coming through the door.
Oh, wow.
There's 5 different characters.
Yeah, no, I didn't get to that part.
You're not missing anything. That's always
No, that would have been fun. But I read a lot. In the downtime. If I'm not having auditions or go-sees, I read a lot. I watch a lot of film.
Do you have time? Do you use this opportunity to also travel as well? For somebody that spent a lot of their life traveling.
I have. I've been to Paris a number of times and to New York and London. I have 4 godsons in London, so I go to visit them when I can.
Oh man, I would love to have some sort of excuse in life that I have to go to London.
Oh, it's his birthday. I have to go. Yeah, he's graduating. So in fact, one of my godsons is graduating from Manchester acting school. So
looks like another trip's coming.
In June, I think I'm going to be out there in June. Yeah.
Oh, it must be hard, Phil.
Yeah.
It must be hard.
It's hard to be me.
Yes, it's because even my one time that I was in Paris, there was a waffle that I had underneath the Eiffel Tower from like just a little stand.
Yeah.
That still to this day is like.
You still remember it?
Yes, and I just desperately want to just go back to have that again to see if it's as good as I remember it.
Now, do you like mayonnaise on your French fries? Or not a thing.
I'm not really big on them. Well, although I like a nice aioli. So so it's just very similar. So I mean, but straight mayonnaise, I don't know if I do straight mayonnaise.
Okay.
It feels like garlic.
That's really good. Because the first time I had that, I thought it was very strange.
Really?
I was in Amsterdam. Like, why do you put mayonnaise on French fries? And then I tasted it. Like, that's why. It's good. Okay.
All right. I guess I know what I'm trying now. All right. Some mayonnaise on my French fries.
Good stuff.
So now, the Major Crimes coming back February 22nd.
Tomorrow night.
Yes. So now, the winter season. What can you tease us about?
Well, I've got some notes here because it's been we just finished filming these 8 episodes on the 22nd of January. But this first one involves a blue Burberry coat. And so this is, we were talking earlier about connections and how things come full circle. So a lot of the stories this year involve the past that either comes back to haunt us or help us. Rusty is changing his career. He's no longer going to be a journalist. He's going to find himself working for someone else and under the auspices of DDA Hobbs. So he'll be doing that. Kieran has Mark Hickman, who's played by Jason Gedrick, who's coming back into her life.
Nice.
So we'll see what happens there. Then the ongoing romance between Sharon and Flynn, Detective Captain Rader. And then Sanchez has some more to do with the foster child that he's been helping. And then I have more to do with the family of the man who killed my father and uncle.
All right. I like that.
A lot of the past coming back.
Which I do like, because it seems like for every season for Major Crimes, now that you have more of an ensemble, you can tell more longer season arcs that always have some like a similar theme that kind of connects everything for that particular season.
Exactly. And a lot of times what we're doing now is we're doing multiple, a single story over multiple episodes. Which is kind of fun for the audience, and it's fun for us to do too. You know, it's a little change of pace rather than doing a brand new episode every week. Sometimes they'll be over 2, 3, or even 5 episodes. So we're going to be doing that this year.
Gives you a chance to get a little sink in a little bit more into the characters and situations a little bit more than just kind of like hitting the fast forward button on some of the things. Like, because we got to get it done in one, guys.
Yeah. You know, because a lot of the times there's always a murder involved because it's Major Crimes, and sometimes halfway through maybe a new episode, because we'll finish. Say episode 14 on a Monday afternoon, then we start episode 15 Monday evening. So we've got to erase all of that stuff from 14, and we start on 15. And I'm thinking, who was killed again, and what was the crime? And I'll have to think back. This is bad. I have to think back to what I was wearing in the episode. Like, oh yes, and we were at this diner or that cemetery. Then it all kind of comes back to me. You know? But I do have to erase some of it and get it out, and then make room for other stuff.
Now, for part of that is that you would film the police and the crime scenes doing that.
Yes.
So now, I was wondering, when they show the point of view of the camera,
yes,
is that you actually filming those scenes, or they just give the camera to a DP or cameraman and they actually film those?
I hold the camera as a prop, and it is running, and oftentimes the cameraman will be right behind me, so my viewfinder is here. So they'll be filming the viewfinder, then they use that for in the show, which is a cool thing.
Yeah,
you know, I have to kind of set it up for what I would be seeing, but oftentimes they're right there filming the viewfinder. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Phillip Keene. Look at this. Major Crimes returns back on TNT tomorrow night, February 22nd. So
9
make
o'clock,
sure, yes,
new day and time.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And if you know any great PanAm memorabilia, you can reach out to Phillip Keene as well.
Yes.
Phillip, where's the best way for them to kind of keep up to date on what you're doing? Or if they want to reach out to you, I found this really cool piece of PanAm memorabilia.
I'm on Facebook and Phillip Keene at Twitter at Phillip Keene. And at what is it? Instagram? Same thing.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Very cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, reach out to him. I get excited for another new season, the winter season of Major Crimes, starting back tomorrow night. I'm Frank Moran. I've been your host. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie. It's just all food on my Instagram, Phillip.
Okay.
That's all it is.
I take tons of pictures of food, too, when I'm traveling.
Oh, all right. Excellent.
Okay.
Until next time, we'll see you back here with another episode of AfterBuzz TV Spotlight On. Until then, take care.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.